live coverage of Expo North as it happens.
This is XpoNorth Live.
My next guest today has been giving a masterclass on how to write picture books. She's written over 250 and is the co-founder of Picture Hooks. Please welcome Vivian French. Now, welcome to Expo North. 250 books. Does writing come easily to you?
Well, I have been writing for a very long time, sort of more than 25 years. And so if you divide it by 25, it's not really quite so many. And some of them are series, and some of them are really quite slight. I wrote a series called The Tiara Club, which ran to 48 books, and I was literally writing them one a fortnight. So that was fairly intense. I wrote one on a plane.
Really?
Yes, I was going to Sri Lanka.
Short haul?
No, long haul, I have to say.
Well, we can see some of the books here, and you can definitely see that there's a range of sizes, but all of them illustrated,
yes,
which is interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, what happens when it comes to pairing up a writer with an illustrator? Is that something that you're given a choice, a decision in, or does the publisher introduce you to your new illustrator?
It varies very much. The general rule, as it were, if I'm talking to people who want to write picture books, I will say that the publisher will pair them up with an illustrator. Mm-hmm. And it's not a good idea to come with your best friend who is good at drawing pictures. One of the things that publishers really enjoy is matching the writer and the illustrator. And sometimes it's really good to have a bit of a tension between them. Going on a Bear Hunt, very famous, yes, written by Mike Rosen, illustrated by Helen Oxenbury. And when Mike saw the illustrations, he was absolutely dumbfounded. He said, "That's not how I imagined it at all." So it's really, really good to have an illustrator who can bring in a second level, because what they're not doing is illustrating the words, because why would you tell a story twice? So that they're taking the words and you're doing something different with them.
Have you been taken by surprise by the illustrations accompanying any of your books?
Oh yes, quite regularly. There's a book I've got here, The Most Wonderful Thing in the World, which is illustrated by Angela Barrett. And in fact, that's an interesting one because I was asked to write for a specific illustrator, which is not a very common occurrence. But I had no idea that she was going to set it in, I think it's 1927 or 1928. I had no idea that she was going to make the King and the Queen very similar to the reigning monarch of the UK at the time. And so it was wonderful. It was really exciting. She also, I have to say, illustrated a lot of things that I hadn't got in the text. And I did have to go back and tweak the text a bit.
Now, you raised an interesting point there, because most of us would assume the writing comes first for an illustrated book.
Not necessarily. Again, the received information is that the writing comes first. But with me, I like to work right from ground level with an illustrator. And sometimes it's very interesting to get ideas from an illustrator. There's a book here, which in fact isn't published yet, and that's Captain Cranky and Sea Dog Steve. And the illustrator, Alison Bartlett, had an idea about a seaside village and a lot of rubbish. And then she came to me and said, would I write the story? And so she produced a whole lot of images that I could then incorporate into the feeling of the story.
Now, the book industry is facing challenging times, but your books are doing very well. Illustrated books seem to be doing very well.
Children's books are bucking the trend.
Right.
In fact, if you look at the statistics, year on year, children's books are increasing in numbers. And there's been a lot of research done just recently. Egmont Books have done some fascinating research on children's reaction to picture books or books with pictures, illustrated books, compared to working with, say, a tablet or an animation. And actually, long term, they will go back to the picture book over and over and over again, whereas they won't with tablet or animation.
You've got some gorgeous illustrations here in some ways, Vivian, and yet some people say if you take have illustrations in a book, then you take away a child's imagination.
I think that's a very interesting point. I mean, I've always had books that are illustrated. Even the chapter books have quite a lot of illustrations in them. I think I think you can actually use your own imagination still with that. I think with smaller children, the pictures are absolutely essential because it's their, if you like, their first introduction to a world beyond the world where they're living. It takes them outside their own experience, and they may not have experienced a jungle. In fact, chances are they probably won't have. So it gives them a chance to visualise what life may be like beyond the four walls of their house.
Now, you've set up picture hooks with literary agent Lucy Jukes. Now, is that developing on what you've just been talking about?
Yes, picture hooks we started because Lucy is an agent and she had a client who was a very good illustrator but who just didn't quite crack it. And I had a couple of students at the art college in a similar situation. And we were saying that there is so much for would-be authors. There are all these writing clubs and there's the Vivan Foundation and there's so many places you can go to learn about writing, but there is absolutely nothing for illustrators who have graduated and they're out in the big wide world and they don't know what comes next. So we decided to set up the picture hook scheme.
Well, Vivian, it's been fascinating talking to you. You could talk a lot more about picture hooks and illustrated books for the moment. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Life.